Knee axial rotations. Another term that you may hear me call these are lower leg cars. The point of these is to specifically isolate what's called tibial torsion. This is your tibia bone. It has the ability to spin or twist, rotate at the actual knee joint. I know we don't commonly think of the knee joint as a rotating joint, but it is in fact a rotating joint, and we want to isolate that specific motion and practice it. To do that, you can start off by sitting on the floor. You can have one leg propped up. I like a greater than 90-degree bend. So if that's 90, I like to have it a little bit tighter than 90 if your knee will allow it. If you can sit like this, that's great. You can do whatever you want with this other leg. That doesn't matter to me. As long as your hip is giving you enough access to sit up and look and see what's kind of going on at your lower leg as you do this. The motion itself is really small. All I really want you to think about is doing a windshield wiper motion with your foot. But there are two rules that I want you to follow as you do this. Rule number one is that your kneecap has to be pointed straight to the ceiling at all times. It's not allowed to go side to side. Second rule, your big toe knuckle should never leave the floor. So we're going to move slow. The pivot point is the heel. So as I windshield wiper my foot outward, my whole shin actually rotates outward. Then, as I windshield wiper inward, my whole shin rotates inward. Again, the motion, external rotation as I windshield wiper out, internal rotation as I windshield wiper in. Where you should be feeling motion occur is kind of it's along what we call the joint line, right through here. I specifically feel it more on the lateral and a little bit deep on the back side of my knee as I perform the motion. Now, what I mean by those rules, as you go out, it's very typical for that knee to want to go inward or outward. So we want to minimize that. Your thigh should not be moving. The big toe knuckle typically wants to curl up off the floor as you come in. But you'll notice as soon as I let that foot curl like this, my big toe knuckle is now off the floor. So your job is to keep that big toe knuckle in contact with the floor at all times as you rotate out as far as you can get it, and then rotate inward as far as you can get it. You will move slow. I like to watch the front of the shin to see that it shifts inward and outward. If you can't see it that well, you can simply place your hand over the front of it and you should be able to feel the shin rotate inward and outward. Perform slow, move with control, try to isolate the motion the best you can, all at this knee joint, and follow those rules. Kneecap to sky, big toe knuckle touching the floor at all times. If your hips or some other joint really limits your ability to sit down on the ground, as I was previously showing, you can also perform this while sitting in a chair. If that's the case, you will have your knee bent to about 90 degrees. It is helpful then to actually have your hands here to help keep your thigh from shifting side to side. And in this case, your kneecap should always be pointed straight forward as rule number one. Rule number two is the same. This big toe knuckle is going to be planted at the floor every single rep. The motion itself is identical. I'm going to make sure my thigh doesn't move anywhere, but I'm still going to pivot on my heel to windshield wiper out. That's external rotation. And then windshield wiper in. That's internal rotation. Out and in. Now, two things to note here. One is that you might notice that I have way more external than I do internal. You may find that you're in a similar situation as that. Typically, I do find that internal is a little bit more challenging because that big toe knuckle really wants to come up off the floor. Just do your best to keep that big toe knuckle down and be honest with this motion. If you don't have much rotation in either direction, that's fine. Rotate as far as you can with what you currently have access to. The second thing is that as you move to the end point, I want you to challenge that end point, which means you get there. You don't let the rest of your body move around to accommodate. but you still actively like push in to that end range. You want to challenge it. Try to push a little further than you did last time. But this is the motion. Same motion, just sitting in a chair.